No good.
Hi there, greetings and welcome to the Cannabis Task Force of Manhattan Community Board 4. I'm just going to read our policy. MCB4 has a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend the meetings in person unless they have a disability and or an extraordinary circumstance. We have none of our task force members that are participating remotely this evening. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members, if they were here via Zoom, would have to leave their cameras on. And the meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel and a transcript is being recorded. So I'm Dolores Rubin, chairing this task force. I'll allow the members that are here to introduce themselves.
My name is Raul Larios. I live in Hell's Kitchen.
Rodney Washington, Chelsea.
Alan Oster, Chelsea.
And we are allowing another member to introduce themselves. You just in time to introduce yourself.
Yeah, not late yet. Sort of. Anyways, my name is Sanford Miller. I'm the committee.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to get a little bit out of order of the agenda, which has been presented. I thought we had Alexandra.
Yeah, she's in this public section.
Okay, Alexandra, if it's okay with you, so that we don't have to wait for a whole meeting, is it okay to give her an update? And we'll bring you over to find out the answer.
There we go.
Hi, Alexandra. Didn't know if this was convenient, but we thought might be best for timing since you have the little one. If you wanted to give your update now, and we'll get on with the rest of our meeting after that.
I very much appreciate that. I'm going to hand this, he was so calm until you said that you wanted me to join Zoom.
I'm scared. I'm scared.
I'm going to hand him off and I will be right back.
Great, so we'll update on something else while you're doing that. So just to let you guys know, the agenda for this evening is we are gonna have a presentation from the Hell's Kitchen Neighborhood Coalition. They're gonna present on their cannabis dispensary mapping. And that will be after we hear from Alexandra, who is giving us an update on Wild Cool. For those of you that don't remember, Wild Cool did present to us several months ago. They have an update on their method of operation and what's going on there. So they're just going to give us a brief update on what's happened. That's why we're going to take that out of order. We also are going to give an update on the administrative letters that we've sent out. But our big to-do today is we will have folks from Cannabis NYC that are finally able to come. We have some questions that we've already sent to them that we're going to ask, but we also are because they're going to be here, we'll have the opportunity to ask additional questions that we think that are really important for us as a task force to be making decisions. And essentially, this also gives the public a chance to ask Cannabis NYC some questions. Okay, welcome back.
Hi, sorry about that.
That's okay. So we understand that there's been a change in operation and you are going to be opening soon. So is that the case?
Yeah, it's just a change, and we've taken on a partner so that we can expedite our opening. Everything that we presented is still our plan for that space and for the second Gotham location. You know, we just got a little stuck in the slow turning wheels of the OCM, and we found a partner that allowed us to expedite, and we're really eager to, you know, open that space. So that's basically what we're doing.
Okay, just for the folks that may not have been in the conversation the first time you came, if you can just let us know the location and the partner that you're working with and how that came about that allowed you to expedite off of the lottery system.
Sure. So our partner is Harlem Grade LLC. We were introduced to them through various lawyers that are working on our store at 3 East 3rd Street. Where our location is 142 10th Avenue. That's on the corner of 19th and 10th Avenue. We have a flagship location now. It's 3 East 3rd Street. Our store is called Gotham. It's a cannabis concept store. So we sell cannabis, like highly curated, high-end cannabis, but we also sell lifestyle goods. We have community events. yeah, we're really trying to change the narrative and shift the paradigm around cannabis.
Great. Well, thank you. Any questions from the committee? No, well, we thank you for joining us. I don't see any hands raised in the public for questions, maybe because I didn't ask. Anyone from the public have any questions? Well, thank you for the update. We wish you luck with
Thank
the
you.
new
We're
opening.
hoping fall, late fall.
Okay, great. We'd like to continue to stay in touch as things unfold.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, good luck with the little one.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Matt Sullivan, I know that you're here. Matt, I didn't know if you're gonna be presenting by yourself or, oh, I see Maya's here as well. Hi,
I'm
Maya.
joined by Maya. So I will defer to Maya to do the presentation, and together we will jointly answer any questions that the committee may have.
We literally just got started. So just want to introduce another task force member that just got here.
Hi, I'm Tina Nelson. I'm so sorry, the New Jersey Transit.
You're okay. I was on M11. It was really slow. So it's okay. So we're just gonna get started on the HKNC presentation. Maya, welcome, and if you could introduce
Thank you.
who you are and who HKNC is for all those that don't know.
Yes, so I'm working as a planning intern at CHDC, and we're working on behalf of HKNC, Hell's Kitchen Neighborhood Coalition, and we want to present to you today our cannabis collector map. So I'm going to share my screen right now so you can see this as I talk through.
Great.
Do you all see this?
We do.
Okay, perfect. So we started this map in June of 2023, and we've walked a lot of Manhattan Community District 4, as well as areas of HKNC that don't fall within MCD4, so like this area right here that I'm pointing to in my cursor. So we use ArcGIS Pro, which is an industry standard mapping software, as well as ArcGIS Field Maps, which is a means of collecting data like on the ground with your phone. So we built layers in field maps for unlicensed cannabis retailers, which is indicated in this red color here. So all these red storefronts. Licensed cannabis retailers, which we know are increasing, we included these with the green. And cannabis licenses under review, under CB4 review, which is these yellow storefronts. As well as padlock shops, which is a new layer that we've added in the last month or two, given the recent operation to padlock storefronts. For each layer, we've added fields to gather more data, including the shop name, address, and if they're in violation of any marketing or security rules that were established through cannabis laws. And the map is interactive as well. So if you click any of the storefronts, you can get an idea of what the storefronts are, how they are operating. So this one indicated here, High Life Smoke Dispensary, was shut down as of our collection in June 14th, which is last week. And we tend to update our map every 3 to 4 months. As padlocking efforts are underway, we plan to update this more frequently in the next couple of weeks. And the data is logged between Matt and I, the CHDC planning staff, and supplemental data is provided by HKNC members.
Great, thank you. So understanding this is a map, it's interactive, it allows for folks to understand for the different shops that may say something on their storefront as cannabis, et cetera. This is giving us an opportunity to understand what's legal, what's illegal, what may be under review, et cetera.
Yes.
What I forgot to ask by framing this entire conversation is why are you here today in front of our task force?
Yes, of course. We believe that having this map as a community resource, having it on the CB4 website, would be really important for people to know and understand. I think the state and the city is making an effort to make these verified cannabis dispensaries like known to the public, and having that public understanding and resource through the CB4 website. People are able to access this map and verify if the stores around them are licensed or not. And I think this is a great way for just people to have this like information at hand.
Does it have the ability to highlight, in the legend, for example, going to license, the one in green, can you highlight it and tell you exactly the number?
No, but I can look into a way that could be. I think right now there are about 5 in CB4, if I might. 4 or 5, but there are very few still, yeah.
So I just want that to sink in a little bit. 4 or 5 that are legal, that's it. Every single other one we pass by on the way over here on 9th, 10th, 8th, whatever, not legal. Okay, that's very important. Great. Any questions from the task force on this map? Or the spirit?
No, I just like to say, I think it's a great tool. I looked at it and then there is, so I live on 10th Avenue and there's a legal cannabis store. So I was very pleased that I tapped on it and I could see it, so I know it works. So I think it's a great tool.
Thank you.
Tina?
Hi, I'm just curious, are there any other explanations other than, I can't really see it that well, other than legal?
Sorry, can you say that again?
So she wanted to know what detail is being offered when you click on any of the locations.
Yeah, so usually when it's an unlicensed cannabis retailer, like it indicates here, it'll have the name of the dispensary, which is in this case Lunchbox Exotics, the address, the date we collected this data, what kind of signage, if there is any illegal signage, will indicate that, as well as any security violations that that storefront may have. So in this case, for example, this one, yes, we saw neon signs in the window, so we indicated that, as well as no presence of a security guard. So you can usually get that data through our pop-ups, but it is data that was collected on that certain date. So it probably has changed to a degree.
Great. Yeah, Lunchbox sort of looks neon-y, but maybe it's not technically neon. Yes, Raul.
My name is Rahul. Thank you. I think this is a great tool. I agree with Ron. It's fantastic. Now, my question is, what are you going to do with this tool? Are you, given the new enforcement updates, is HKNC going to take it upon itself to get these unlicensed stores closed? What are you guys going to do with this tool?
So,
Well,
I'll take that question, Maya. So what HKNC has been able to do since starting this mapping project, we've been working closely. We've been raising these issues to relevant parties, OCM, the Sheriff's Department, the Sheriff's Office, NYPD, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. This map for HKNC's purpose served as a tool to raise issues, raise these concerns that members both of HKNC and of the wider Manhattan Community District 4 have been raising, but have not had sort of like a comprehensive list. So through the mapping effort, we believe that this provides that comprehensive list and a comprehensive. Click on it, and you can find any information that you need about it.
I think that's great, Matt. It is my understanding from the new enforcement updates that there are 2 parties that have enforcement capability in the city of New York. One is OCM, and they have a specific process of how you file complaints with them. I think it's through their website, and there's a specific address where they want you to file your protest. And the other one is the New York City Sheriff's Office. And they also have a different process with which to file complaints. Are you guys talking to those 2 agencies? Are you filing complaints with them directly?
Yeah, so we've communicated with OCM and with the Sheriff's Office on occasion. Those letters can be found on HKNC's website, where we document how many shops we picked up on walks of the neighborhood. And in more recent months, we have, when the padlocking when the mayor's padlock protect operation started, we found, we documented about 10 or 12 priority shops that HKNC believed were shops that OCM and the sheriff's office and NYPD should target in our district before any others. And those were shops that were within 500 feet of a school and 200 feet of a school and 500 feet of a church, because those are in direct violation per OCM's cannabis laws. So we have been in communication, and we plan to continue to raise those issues as they arise.
That's excellent, Matt. Where do you keep that? Where are you documenting that? You said there was some sort of website?
Sorry, can you say it one more time?
Where's this information available now?
Yeah.
Oh, so if you can go back to the resources tab at the top, all this information is available on HKNC's website. We have a couple tabs on there. Our maps and reports are located under the resources tab, and you can bounce out one to action. Sorry, go to action. Any letters that we've written, right, so on May 24th, we wrote a letter to the district attorney's office, OCM, and the sheriff's department regarding priority unlicensed cannabis shops closures, referencing the map that we created and including that as an appendix so that they knew exactly what efforts HKNC has already taken. Yeah.
Great.
Excellent, excellent. Congratulations. Fantastic. Thank you.
Have you updated this at all since, like, I guess the passage of the budget and the beginning of hopefully improved enforcement efforts?
Yeah, so the padlock storefronts, I'm assuming this is like around early May.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've started our data collection. So all of these orange storefronts, as you can see, this one was collected last week. I surveyed between 34th and 42nd Street between 8th and 9th Avenues. And I highlighted some of storefronts that were explicitly padlocked, as well as some storefronts which we haven't indicated yet here that have had closures, but not specifically from the sheriff's department or OCM, but have closed in light of some of the padlocking efforts. So we are hoping to continue to do that across Community District 4 in the next few weeks.
If we get like a historical view, I don't know how hard that is to do with ArcGIS, but if possible, that would be like extremely interesting to see, like as the enforcement goes on.
Oh, like a time lapse.
If it's, yeah, maybe not, I don't know, like technically how easy or hard that is, but like even just screenshots of like, here's a screenshot from May and then a screenshot from whatever is like you used to do.
So Matt, it's similar to the suggestion that was made at HHHNS on the social services to see where there's been change.
Right. Yeah, we could explore that opportunity. We can explore that option in ArcGIS. It might be easiest to do something similar to what HHHS suggested, which was to include those permanently shut down shops as their own layer, and maybe include right. So we could include it in the map as its own layer in the legend if a shop has been shut down permanently. So you could track like the rise and fall, I guess, of unlicensed cannabis shops throughout the district.
Great suggestion.
But the date maybe that you discovered it was shut down. I don't know if the date that it actually was shut down is available, but then you could.
Yeah, date of discovery,
yeah.
right? In the same way you see in neon signs, the day of discovery, right?
Yeah, and like if we note shops that have been permanently shut down, we might be able to communicate with like the relevant parties that conduct the enforcement to see if they can provide a date that it was shut down, to see if we can get the most accurate data. But
yeah,
so thank you.
We could like, we don't necessarily need them to present again, but we could like, 3 months or whatever, check back in and look at that.
No, absolutely. But I think that if I understood Maya correctly, the ask is for this task force to opine on whether or not we would want to add this interactive tool on the Manhattan Community Board 4 website, correct? So, you know, with that in mind, thoughts, because I think that
Yes.
probably can play around with this data as it's live and going to be changing, by second. But I think that, you know, why don't we just sort of figure out where we sit with the thought of adding this to the district manager's task of adding it to our website. You have something to say, district manager?
Yeah, it's actually not gonna be much weight on us at all, just to be clear, that should not be a major concern, I'll let you know if when it's too much work on this. So, cause I mean, at the end of the day, we wouldn't be embedding the actual map onto our site, because that's actually too difficult. We're a government agency, they're a non-government agency, that doesn't work, but we can certainly embed the links to the map.
Yeah.
I do think the issue, and I asked Matt and Maya, obviously, that I said, connected this, we're gonna see a lot of change now, right? We just saw 2 years of, you know, growth of unlicensed stores. And now we're gonna see things starting to disappear, hopefully padlock, new stores that are coming online that are licensed. So I noticed that changed dramatically when I look on the OCM proximity map, which is still not even like, they have a disclaimer saying it's for informational purposes only, they can't guarantee the information on there is not gonna 100% accurate. So I guess that's my only concern is putting it on our website. I would like to make sure that you guys have the person power to continue to keep up on it, because what I don't want is to be providing the public with information that is, you know, a little bit old is fine, but super stale, or basically something that's no longer, that's claiming to be unlicensed when it now maybe it is licensed, you know? And then people feel getting that wrong information. Those are the kind of concerns I have. And the only reason I really do have them is because we've had our own experience where we've spent a lot of time building an application map, which is on our website, but it does take a lot of maintenance.
So here's a question for Matt and Maya. I mean, clearly what I'm hearing from the task force is that we like the tool, we think the tool is useful. And this concern, that's a valid concern about change happening really quick. What is the thought process, and it may not be something you can answer now, on waiting until the fall? Because again, this additional enforcement only really went online at the end of May, as NYPD officers were deputized to bring in additional enforcement measures. And the only reason why I'm mentioning the fall is that might allow for some time for additional data capture, and allow for us to, as a board, introduce it in a way where it coincides with understanding the new landscape. Any thoughts on that from the committee, and then Matt and Maya, practicality of waiting? Yes, Tina.
I mean, I definitely think it's important to have up-to-date information if we're putting it on our website, or at the very least, some statement that says either on their website or on our website, you need to, you know, this information needs to be confirmed. I think if we give them bad info, that's obviously not a great situation.
Yeah.
So a qualification at the very least.
Matt, Maya, your thoughts on that, whether waiting or the qualification, both waiting and the qualification? What are your thoughts?
I agree on the waiting. I'd like to see the enforcement go sort of into full effect. I think we've seen like the trickle of enforcement come into Community District 4. And I'd like to see, and I mean, I know there's already been controversies surrounding the enforcement, so sort of like the rollout from OCM, that it's going to take a little bit more time than just 1 month to see how enforcement is fully going to be fleshed out. So I think internally we can continue to do our walks and do our field work to track this map, to track the enforcement of, you know, to track the padlocking, see if there's increases in padlocking, see if there's increases in storefronts popping up, but at least internally continue that and update it on the HKNC website, and then come back in the fall and see how the map looks at that point, once we've kind of gone through like a summer of enforcement.
Yeah, I think Tina has a follow-up, and then I saw Rob.
Yeah, sorry, I just have one follow-up. do you have anywhere on that, data an indication as of today's date or as of 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So it's indicated, so everybody knows it was updated as of.
Yeah.
Right, so on the main
Yeah.
map, on the main map, on the main webpage, before you pop it out into the larger map, it says as of June 2024.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
To the larger map.
Honestly, I was just looking for that level of disclaimer. I think that's helpful to understand. And I think as long as you guys feel like this is something you guys can manage going forward with the change, I'm.
Yeah, we can, I'd say,
But I do think whether we wait, if you guys are comfortable waiting, then we wanna wait, that's fine. I do think there's an idea though of tracking and having a visual, being able to produce that is really helpful for the community to see, not only just because of the poor decision or way it was rolled out, but also to show progress. And I think we do want to be able to say that there's progress.
And just one
So-
more thing I want to, oh, sorry.
Maya, please.
One more thing I just wanted to add with the dates. Like, as you can see, this is an older data collection, but each one of these stores has the date attached to the data collection. So even through the map, it is identifiable of when that data was collected.
That's helpful. Rodney, you had something else?
Yeah, no, it was the
exactly.
date thing as a.
So I draw it out, oh, go
I'm
ahead,
gonna
Sophie,
answer
please.
the clarifying question. What are the boundaries of the area that you survey?
Yeah, so Community District 4, of course, which is this border that you can see. Sorry?
So all of Community District 4, not limited to Hell's Kitchen?
Yes, all of Community District 4, as well as HKNC's area, which is into the Garment District.
Yes, HKNC extends into the Garment District. They have a small portion down West 20 and West 23rd, around West 23rd, that is on the outside of Community District 4 that we have not received. And in those cases, we kind of rely a little bit on HKMC members to provide that data. And then once we have that data, we plug it in and then we add it to our walking area to check. But as long as HKMC members provide it, we go out, we vet it, and then we add it to the map.
So just to reiterate, the HKNC members are generally block associations. So that's why it doesn't really fall within specifically Community Board 4's area, because some block associations may span across streets, et cetera. But also there's business improvement districts that have engaged with HKNC and that are members. So again, it's not tied cleanly to MCB4's boundaries. But clearly, we can say that there's an impact to MCB4 community members in that Garment District area, as it really is still close to home for those in Hell's Kitchen. Sorry, Alan.
So maybe Nat thought, getting in touch with CCBA, with the Chelsea Block Associations, would facilitate getting those, but we have 15 block associations associated with CCBA that might be interested in providing information and checking on the storefronts, feeding you that information that you could maybe need to verify it, because at least you know what's happening south of, 23rd Street going down to 15th Street.
Yeah, definitely. We could provide our contact information to the committee, and then you can send that out to block associations, and they can send us locations.
We'll put you in touch with you.
Yeah.
So according to the recent briefing, the enforcement briefing that they had, it seems that it's not just the sheriffs and NYPD. They didn't mention it, but it seemed like there are going to be many more agencies that will be able to do padlocking. So things are going to hopefully move pretty quickly over the next couple of months.
The finance angle is an angle that they've been moving towards in the tax department, but for taxes, et cetera.
I think it was a total of almost 16 agencies that are going to padlock.
Well, with padlocking enforcement,
Actually,
not with padlock.
oh yeah, padlocking enforcement. It's spreading out.
So bottom line is we will see a change in the landscape. So, I mean, I think everybody here has gotten a comfortable answer with the as of, and knowing that there's some disclaimer of when the data is collected so that we don't have to worry as much about giving bad data because we're disclaiming when it was collected from. But I also think that I was hearing that we're comfortable waiting, or do you think that it's helpful to have what's out there? We'll call it as of yesterday, on our website. And again, I leave that up to the task force to respond to HKNC, which way we're thinking.
I would be comfortable putting it out. I think it's probably as fresh as it's ever going to be, given that like, it sounds like they did a collection of data in the last like week or two. And I imagine this summer will be the time, sounds like when it is being most regularly updated, since you indicated that there would be maybe more frequent surveys, than just once every 3 or 4 months. Because this is like a time when enforcement is supposed to be stepped up. And I think, and I also feel like with the disclaimer, like, may not be perfectly accurate, but it is, you know, accurate enough and disclaimed enough, and will not be out of place with the other, you know, any other maps and resources we have on the website, which may have similar challenges.
Is that a motion?
Thank you.
Yes, all right, motion to recommend linking to the Hell's Kitchen Neighborhood Coalition map on the CB4 website.
Second.
In a second, okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, guess what, Maya, Matt, you stole this on the map, you bought the map, you sold
As
it.
is.
Welcome to the big time.
Yes, so, no, seriously, thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
HKNC for the work that you're doing, and I do think that overall knowledge is power. And this allows for at least the narrative of people understanding that you might see a lot of weed shops. That doesn't mean that they're legal, and maybe it helps us get people to recognize that when the legal ones do come online, those are the ones we should start supporting to try to help weed some of these weed shops out. All right, that's it. I'm not saying anything silly anymore for the rest of the night. Ooh, I probably just lied.
Can I have one quick question, since it's up on the website? Mike, can you scroll over the licensed cannabis storefront that you have on 40th, on the corner of 40th and 9th?
This
That was
one,
the, that was the,
this was an older cannabis storefront that I
okay.
believe went temporarily closed.
No,
However,
that's
there's
fine,
I think
that's
a
fine.
new, yeah.
Scared me there for a second, because I was about to say, we have our second opening, and I was like, that's
Yeah.
gonna be our third opening.
no, that's
That's the
the,
old one, got it, yep,
that's the,
that's the collective,
the
right.
collective.
Yep,
Great.
alright, thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good job.
do we have anyone in the attendees? And I forgot to ask if they had any questions. I
Yeah.
apologize, so you did a very bad job.
Then the rest of us.
Okay. So our star witness is not here. So what we'll do is we'll move on. You guys are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but don't feel that you're obligated.
I'm gonna move you to attendees.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you. And then we're gonna turn the show over to Jesse, because
Sure.
Jesse's gonna update some of the administrative letters.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna start with
Oh, you're gonna start.
other news,
Okay.
because it's relevant, so.
Okay,
I'm gonna send you an email, tomorrow, but, the application for 797 8th Avenue, which is Nichols, Planet 51, you guys, the board approved it back in May, is opening, this week. So, they sent out an invite to us and everything, so that will be officially our second opening. There's a couple other ones that.
Where's that?
Approved.
Where's the location?
797 8th Avenue. So that's good news. That's our second official open dispensary. And so that was that, but, so I included all of the admin letters that I had sent already. And I just felt it was a good moment in time if you guys had any questions, you know, if you have any questions going forward, you know, so these were letters that either because the folks had either sent us 30-day notices and never, then that's all we ever got, right? Or had not sent us anything, and they're somehow being considered by OCN. So, I did two major letter groups. One was the unresponsives, and then one was the withdrawal. So we did have a lot of withdrawals, which I appreciated people actually responding and saying, we're no longer interested. But that's all that is them sending it to me. I have no clue what they're saying to MCN. So I sent an official letter with that long list of folks that contacted us about withdrawals. That is similar one with ones that have sent us 30-day notices, and then we never heard from them. So, and it was a long time coming. I waited just because we were processing the ones that were responsive, for a while. But so those are the two major letters, but then since then, there's been a few others. And then there's one that you'll notice that obviously it corresponds with the part of your business here, which is a 3838 Avenue, and we can go over that.
Yeah, look to that now.
Okay, so, yeah, but I just wanted to check in if there's any questions, any issues, again, if you have them later and read the letters and then want to know why I did this and why I didn't do that, or whatever, I'm happy to explain. But basically, again, we do this with BLP committee routinely. If we get an SLA license application and then never hear from the applicant again, we do an administrative denial to the state. Look at already sent, they sent us a notice, but then they never followed up with any community outreach. So we want to make sure that we're not letting something go by and then it gets approved. But that's basically the purpose.
So I'm going to just back up a little bit, just because I know there's lots of people in the public, but we do live in perpetuity online.
Sure.
So essentially, just for people's knowledge, when the board takes an action, we usually have a motion, seconded, it's voted on in a committee or a task force, and then that gets voted on by the full board. That would be a letter that literally has been voted on. There are many occasions where a letter is still written and it's not something that's voted on. Either it's something that truly is literally just documenting, thank you for showing up, we appreciate this, we'd like you to come back with something. It didn't need to be voted on. And in some cases, as Jeff was outlining, which has been very helpful for BLP, and it makes sense that the Cannabis Task Force is doing the same thing, is a documentation that a conversation happened or a conversation didn't happen, so that we are telling the agency that we as the community board, we're still on the ball of doing of playing our part and completing our portion of the process that's been asked of us, which is to review. And so that's why we probably, for this task force, have more administrative letters than we've had letters, as we haven't had as many people come and apply and speak to us as we have that originally were thrown into the lottery and ended up contacting the office. So that's just to explain why there are administrative letters to begin with, and what the difference is between a voted on letter that the whole board is going to opine on, and something that the district office manages that communication. Sanford, you had a question?
Yeah, we didn't have any, we didn't meet last month, I assume due to not having business. And then today, I don't see any applicants on the docket. Is this because of the OCM lottery deadline? We reached.
Pretty much the queue isn't created for all of these. I suspect we'll see another round, right? So they basically opened it all up, they created deadlines, the deadlines were closed, and then they created this queue. And so, it's thousands and thousands of applicants deep. And so, and they're slowly processing them. And so we're just not seeing, I literally got two applications, and one was basically a change of operations with the folks that presented, and the other one is the one that we're gonna talk about right now. And so that's really it. And so, we're not getting anywhere near what we used to get in terms of applications. That doesn't mean they're not out there, they're still here, and I would suspect to see the proximity map actually does provide a good idea of who's upcoming and who's about to happen. So, the gentleman on 56th and 9th, you remember him? He's been approved. He's waiting to open. I don't know when he'll open. That's the other thing. There's this approval, and then that doesn't have anything to do with when they actually choose to open. So the guys from Nichols are, we approved them way after Jerry, but they're opening. And so,
do you know how
But Jerry is working, the store is being worked
it's
on.
been renovated?
Oh,
Yeah, good.
There's a big sign and stuff. But definitely.
Do you know how many applicants we've approved in total?
Yeah, I think I don't know.
Okay, I'm just curious, because it seems I don't know, it doesn't seem like we have approved enough people to saturate the neighborhood legally,
No,
Not yet.
no, not yet.
like five according to the
Well,
rules.
so the issue also, like, and that's part of the admin letter, is there's ones that, like, we are saying, you're clearly on the proximity map, it's shown as being considered, but we don't know any information on. So that's always the concern. But no, yeah, I don't think if everyone that we approved, that OCM turned around and approved them, you know,
Yeah,
we don't think we would have saturated.
Not yet.
Not yet, we're close.
and when we know that I assume there is a round two of this, that's like coming out. Perhaps we should write, I think it'd be better to do when it's more imminent, but write a letter with whatever we think of like. As Joe was always suggesting, some aspects of this process are very bad, and what could be done better, round two.
Yeah, for
That's a
sure.
great idea to
Yeah,
have
that's-
at one of our upcoming meetings in between is to talk about, and that's sort of one of the ideas around having Cannabis NYC speak today. Hear what their role is, what they're doing, what hasn't been working and what
Yeah.
they're working on to keep us current so that we can opine on, oh, okay, we don't need to
Yeah.
comment on this anymore, they've changed that type of thing.
I think this week, I don't know exactly, sweet spot's like a few months before, like when there is a second round, it's clearly in the offing, and there's some discussion of what will or will not be changed. And people are thinking about it, but not so close that it's actually just set in stone. And
Right.
What we say is, who cares, 'cause it's already been done.
Good point.
Jesse? I'm sorry,
Oh, yeah, go on.
going back to your admin letter with the 2 or 3 pages of applicants.
Yeah, the withdrawal or the non.
Let me see, I think this one is entitled.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
You guys doing?
Good.
I have a bunch of spaces for you over here.
Letter of non-support for unresponsive.
Yes,
candidates.
sure.
Those guys.
Yeah.
So I noticed there that items 40, 41, and 42 are all the same address.
Yeah.
353 West 57th Street, which has a lot of meaning to me because that's the Hudson. What's that about?
So that's a great question, and that's what the issue is that, I mean, when this started, everybody flooded the market. You know, applicants flooded the market with their 30-day notices.
Okay.
And so that was, you know, I had either one applicant applying for 3 or 4 different locations, or I would have the same location being applied for by 3 or 4 separate applicants. You know, in my opinion, what I think was happening, honestly, was they were doing, you know, you could do this, you could go on these real estate, you know, commercial real estate sites, type in the square footage you're looking for the area you're looking for, and it pops up.
So
You know,
you
it's
see
literally a
it's
list of locations, and then people were filling those out. Without having any more like skin in the game than that. So for the first few months, we were getting those, and it was like, how is this possible, right? Like, how are we gonna have a bidding war between 4 or 5? I don't think, I would say probably 80% of those were actual. You know, so then that's why we changed our process to, you have to prove.
So you have a link.
Premises, and so that really made it easier for us to then say, we can't consider you because you don't have control of the premises, or you didn't have at least a letter from the landlord saying you control the premises. But I gotta tell you, we didn't even run into that issue that much. I feel like most of them were literally just people who were writing anything they can
just to get.
to get into that,
get
to get into
process.
their deadline, to get out of that deadline. So that's why this letter is actually quite late coming, because I technically probably should have done it months ago, but like, I didn't want to leave it out there because the queue is so deep that I didn't want to leave it out there, and OCM gets to somebody that they can claim that they gave us notice. And, you know, and then OCM goes, well, statutorily, we're gonna approve you.
So again, to the point of just making sure we document. Tina, you had a question?
Sorry, am I on the email? Because I can't find, I'm trying to find the letters you're referring to, but I can't find the email.
You should have been, so did you get the committee? You got the committee email?
I got the barcode to come in.
Oh,
What
okay.
day did you send me?
I sent it last week. I usually send it Thursday or probably send it Thursday or Friday, but I will double check. I apologize. But I will include you.
And I want to note that we do have an attendee,
Yeah.
their hand up. So Maya Perez, we're gonna bring you over and you guys are next to the queue, so.
Right, thank you.
Good timing. Okay, Maya, hi, welcome.
Hello?
Yes, hi, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry. Hi, my name is Maya. I'm a community organizer who lives in Elliott and Chelsea, and also a bud tender that fights for communities that are disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. Look, dispensaries will be successful. OCM just made a public statement saying legal cannabis sales are up 27% in the cannabis industry, since the interagency task force has been shutting down illegal smoke shops. But I want the community board to ask questions on how owners of the dispensary will contribute to communities that are disproportionately impacted, like in Fulton and Chelsea housing. The Office of Cannabis Management has specific recommendations for dispensary license owners to help to engage with community. And these cannabis shops I would like you to ask if these cannabis shops are following these recommendations. The OMC recommendations are to develop community-based virtual and on-site incubation and cannabis education opportunities for the CDI, communities disproportionately impacted, and other small business owners hoping to enter or transition into adult use industries from these communities. I ask y'all to ask hard questions and to push to helping our community. I live in Fulton and Chelsea Elliott housing, and that's all I'm asking, because I really feel like you guys need to ask the hard questions and see if these dispensaries are helping out our community, which they can potentially be. So that was all.
Thank you, Maya, for that reminder. We appreciate that. Maybe those additional questions are added to our questionnaire that we'll be sending out to the next round of applicants. So thank you, Maya. We appreciate that reminder.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. So we have with us in the room, thank you for being here in person. Folks from Cannabis NYC, I'm Dolores. This is Jesse, who you've probably been communicating with for a while. And I'll just let the rest of the folks that are here just introduce themselves, since we're all in the room together, and then I'll turn it over to both of them to introduce yourselves.
My name is Rahul. I live in Hell's Kitchen.
My name is Rodney Washington, I'm Jesse.
Welcome, I'm Alan Oster from Joseph.
Sanford from Hell's Kitchen.
Tina Nelson, pleased to meet you.
Yes, too. I'm Roy Allen, Senior Strategy and Outreach Associate for Cannabis NYC.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tosia Ajayi. I'm a Senior Policy and Research Analyst for Cannabis NYC. And Cannabis NYC is a hub of city resources. We're an interagency hub. We work across, again, different agencies strategically and intentionally to achieve our mission, which is a thriving, sustainable, and of course, equitable cannabis industry in New York State. So that's just very high level.
That's great. What I was hoping is a lot of folks, again, they understand this is a state law, which has made cannabis legal.
Yeah.
And they do understand that there is this agency OCM, and there's been a lot of press about them, a lot of it mostly critical on the rollout. But who is Cannabis NYC? Exactly what role do you have to play specifically in the opening, if there is a role, closing, if there is a role, et cetera? So I think that would be helpful, just so that folks understand that there also is a city arm to this rollout.
Right, and, I'll kick off and Tosi can jump in when she's ready, but, I think Cannabis NYC, our role here is to really be the support system for the cannabis industry in New York City. And that's, everything from education to business support services and just overall navigating government. I mean, the biggest issue we see in our day-to-day is people just aren't aware of all the resources that are available to them. And it's a reason why we're strategically placed at the New York City Department of Small Business Services, because that agency in New York City provides a number of business support services in general. So what I would say Cannabis NYC really does is, we want to help the environment and the new industry grow properly, and with as much resources as possible. And then on the other side, which is really a lot of the work that Tosi does, it revolves around the policy piece and just making sure people are educated at every level. So that's from, the top of the administration to our fellow colleagues in city government, to people and business owners in communities to understand, yes, now it's officially legal, but there's been changes as we've seen so far. The federal government is getting ready to reschedule cannabis for the first time ever. So what does that mean for you guys? It means a lot. A lot of things are going to change. And part of our job at Cannabis NYC is to make sure New York City is fully up to date on those things and then help them implement their businesses based on those things.
That's great, Roy. Yeah, we align our programming to support what's coming out of the state office. So the Office of Cannabis Management, again, is at the state level. We're completely separate bodies, but when new things are coming out of the state, for example, when the inaugural application window opened for adult use licenses, we were hosting, education programming and, speaking on policy that's, that is impacted by the licensing structure. So, for example, we came in on a conversation about the notifications you guys were receiving for the community board. So we were able to identify, for example, that, community boards, did not necessarily understand why they were getting so many notifications, that it was part of the application window for the priority deadline that you needed to alert the community that you wanted to operate in. And that was something that we penned a memo about to make sure that folks knew, that was the action process, so we try to, facilitate information to close information gaps. And again, as Roy said, just make sure that all rungs of the community are informed of what's coming out.
So since you were talking a little bit about policy, we did have some questions that we did send to you, and I know that everyone in the room will probably have additional questions, but I figured I'd dig into that. So recognizing that you're separate, right? And there are things that are very specific that are in that law that sound like it makes no sense for us because we don't have acres, we don't have roads, we have streets and we're very dense. Something like the micro businesses, are there parts of that licensing structure which New York has added additional layers of either restrictions or do we have qualifications? How does that work when someone's applying for these types of licenses that literally if they're implemented in a denser place like New York City, they may not make sense. I'm just wondering if that's something that you're grappling with in your agency.
Yeah, absolutely. Since 2022, Cannabis NYC has been working with city planning as well as the Department of Buildings to address some of the zoning requirements or just restrictions to allowing all 5 license types that were issued in the first application window to operate within New York City. So micro business is one that with that particular license type is a combination of cultivation, growing cannabis with any other function in the additional license type. So you can be a cultivator and a retailer, you could be a cultivator and a processor, and I'm also naming the different license types, right? There was also distribution, and there was also cultivation, retail, micro business, processing and distribution, are the different license types. With the recent City of Yes zoning initiative that was put together by Mayor Adams to address decades-long, vacancies that were, restricted based on the zoning types. We've seen a big change happen actually within the last month. We now have cannabis. Cannabis was one of the 20+ industries that would be impacted. There are more places to cultivate in the city than one would expect. Those are some of the things that come out from our interagency work. As I mentioned, we've been working with city planning and the Department of Buildings since 2022. And also, in addition to that, whenever there are regulations coming out from the state, we participate in public comment periods. So just recently, there were proposed amendments to the adult use regulations. And, we make sure that we comb through those regs line by line to see how it fits within the city landscape and suggest recommendations that can make it more adjacent to what we're dealing with in the city.
So one of the things I know that came up, and it's related to that, thinking about how they work for New York City. So sticking with cultivation as the example, even if land uses change or uses are changing, you're allowing that. What other oversight is there potentially from your agency for environmental concerns that may come with, let's say, the building next door happens to either produce a lot of byproduct, whatever that is, use a lot of energy, or even safety issues where people have heard, again, not in New York because it hasn't happened yet, but in other areas where people do grow indoors and there are incidents, there's fire hazard, et cetera. Are there additional layers of protections that New York City is putting in place if somebody's looking for those types of licenses?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we created in our work, again, with city planning and the Department of Buildings, are different guides. So there is a micro business guide currently on the Department of Buildings website that speaks to, the different zoning and also what happens in the event that there are certain environmental protections violated. So I can say that there is oversight, and again, in our role as Cannabis NYC, we're interacting with over 120 city leaders. That's from NYPD, that's from the Sheriff's Office, that's from the Department of Environmental Protection. We get to speak with all of them as, these different agencies, for example, Department of Environmental Protection, it is their job to regulate and oversee the management of energy and water usage, right? So we're not going to take their job, but we're going to advise them and give them information about cannabis and also advise them so they know what the state regulations say so that they can implement what makes the most sense for this jurisdiction.
So it's more working in partnership with these agencies instead of your team that's part of SBS or an outgrowth of SBS that needs to manage it. You're just providing the translation, so to speak, of the law and of the industry so that other agencies can appropriately put around policies around this that make sense.
Exactly,
Okay.
because we're the cannabis subject experts and, so they might think that they understand, but we're able to give the nuanced information to help them to make the best solution.
Yeah, and that ties into the interagency hub piece of it, being in the center of all of this. We connect with these different departments because it's affecting the overall outcome, which is creating, a nice and acceptable environment for everyone on each side of it, so the business owner and the community. So we do work with the different departments and agencies. We have meetings with the different deputy mayors and the Adams administration. This is part of the reason why he appointed Tashida Dawson as the founder and also founded Cannabis NYC. So that's where this all ties in together.
So the other question I sent to you ahead of time, you've already answered within the statements you've just made about what agencies do you work with, et cetera. The only thing that I'm wondering is on enforcement. Do you have any role to play on enforcement?
I think from the policy side, and she will go deep into that, there's definitely a support we give to the sheriff's department and NYPD. When it comes to like, you know, any sort of, I guess, operationalizing the actual enforcement piece, we leave that to the subject matter experts, which is the, you know, deputy mayor, public safety's team, the sheriff's department, and NYPD and state officials. We do our best to give the support when it comes to the policy and how they should implement it, but when it comes to fully operationalizing and going into the stores and doing all that stuff, that's their team's efforts.
Got it. So if someone were to identify illegal activity around cannabis, they're not contacting Cannabis NYC. They're going through the channels that have been set up through OCM and the sheriff's office, et cetera.
Sure.
For that.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean they can't come to us, right? Because we have a relationship.
Got it.
But if you were to call me and say, hey, Roy, I see 6 illegal shops, Roy is going to call the sheriff's department and say, hey, we got a constituent who's telling us about 6 illegal shops. Here are the addresses.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
And it is often our role to educate the public on what's happening as well. So, for example, Operation Padlock to Protect has been announced. It started in May of this year. This was after about a year of working with, you know, the state to allow the proper enforcement authority for the sheriff to be able to padlock the illegal storage shut. So when the press release came out, you know, founding director Rashida Dawson supplied a quote. We also host a 5-borough coalition meeting where we engage with community members, business leaders, and we're able to explain to them what's happening. You know, because it's a difference to hear a headline and then to be able to actually, you know, hear from the leaders, you know, cannabis subject matter experts in the city to explain this to the constituents so that in layman's terms, that they understand what's happening. On the enforcement piece, you know, Cannabis NYC has been forthright with kind of a 3-pronged strategy, right? So first, you know, facilitating the information to people who may not know what the law actually allows them to do versus not. And then working to rehabilitate, right? So if someone makes a mistake, you know, we have resources that can course correct and allow people the opportunity to get on the right track. After those 2 things have been done, then enforcement is the last option. But also making sure that we don't lose sight of some of the historical injustices that have happened in New York City with the war on drugs, the, you know, over policing, criminalization of cannabis, and making sure that as these enforcement decisions are being made, you don't lose sight of the historical and, you know, what has happened in policy in the past, so we don't repeat the same mistake. So,
Well, speaking of those injustices, if I may, it's been, to me at least personally, been a big disappointment, the rollout in New York State. But it turns out that it's not just New York State. Most of the states in the United States that have legalized marijuana have failed terribly at achieving the goals of economic justice, of undoing all the damage that was done by those very punitive laws that existed before. And in fact, there was a book that came out recently by an economist in the University of California called "Can Legal Weed Win?" And I don't know if you heard of it. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. But he basically says his team they started throughout the United States and it's been almost a complete failure. Only the state of Nevada has where only the state of Nevada has 40% of owners who are actually Black or Latino. All other states, they are white. So so from the point of view that the goal to bring justice, economic justice, has been a total failure. And one of the problems they say, which New York is part of the problem, or has that same problem, that very little money was allocated. Well, the rollout was a disaster. But on top of that, there's been very little money to help these people to be able to finance the opening of dispensaries. We ourselves were kind of guilty of that because we were requiring applicants to have control of a lease. And that can be incredibly expensive to be able to come here, to be able to even just have the right to apply. They had to have a lease or control of a lease, which usually means they had a lease. It's very expensive. And many of these people just couldn't afford to just keep waiting and waiting and waiting for the license to come up. So I say all that to see, what is it that you guys are gonna do different to fix this problem? Where applicants can go from application to actual license, and what are you guys gonna do in that to fix that injustice?
Well, I will start off by saying it's the Office of Business State who issues the licenses, is not New York City. But what we do is we try our best to, number one, facilitate information about when the application window was open so that we can encourage people to apply. One thing about the law that was passed, the MRTA, is there is a goal in the law to award at least 50% of the licenses to social and economic equity applicants. So those are people from minority backgrounds, communities disproportionately impacted, as we heard from one of the questions, distressed farmers, service-disabled veterans, women. And right now, the state is passing that goal, which is very impressive to see your point. It hasn't been done in any of the other states. Now, when it comes to, there's one thing to have a license, it's another thing to have be operational. And I do want to just clarify that the inaugural application window, it had two deadlines. There was a priority deadline in November where you did have to have site protection, but you could apply for the by the final deadline, which was December 18th, 2023, even if you did not have site protection. So there were opportunities for people without that to apply. I don't want to get too into the nitty gritty of what's happening on the policy side right now, but there is a push to review all of the applicants who made the November queue. So that says something in itself, right? Without getting too nitty gritty into the weeds with it. But what the city is doing, apart from education support, we're really excited that this just yesterday or Tuesday, we announced our Cannabis NYC loan fund. I don't have too many details, it's just the initial announcement, but it's in collaboration with the Economic Development Corporation, and we are providing financing opportunities to card licensees. So those are the justice impacted community who was issued the first licenses, conditional licenses, not part of the adult use application window, but before that, New York State issued the first licenses to the justice impacted community as well as distressed farmers. Again, something that we haven't seen in other states. So there have been efforts. I personally would not call the rollout a total failure. I think there are some definite things that we can improve on, but Cannabis NYC, we're working to provide financing and technical support, which Roy can definitely speak more to some of the services we offer.
Yeah, piggybacking on the loan fund, which is gonna be great. You know, we have these business solution centers that are in each borough. And we have account managers who are designated to specialize in the support of not only applying for cannabis licenses, but getting the business owner up to speed on understanding, you know, the documentation, what you're going through and all those different things.
That was my question, because we see a range of applicants with lawyers and consultants. And
Right,
then I can think there are a few that come in and you just wanna say, you need some help.
of course.
And I think even not knowing who you guys were, I'm always thinking OCM, but it's so good to hear what you do. And my question would have been, you know, if we had an applicant like that, would I could direct into your
Yes.
office, right? And as you were saying, it was like, yeah, that's what this guy, you know, he was a veteran. He was, you know, he was an elderly man, but I wanted to get online and help him. I was like,
Right,
but he was just like, I can do this. And he had his thing written out, drawn out on a piece of paper,
Yeah.
like this is
His
my
plans,
plan. I was like, maybe I could do something, but this is great.
Yeah.
This is great to hear. And it's-
So
Yeah.
you're just sparking in me a thought, perhaps one thing, another more administrative work for Jesse,
Sure.
perhaps it'd be great, because I know that we've done little sort of events with SBS, perhaps it's where some of the resources, maybe the links are directly put on our website
Sure.
for those that are actually applying, so that
Alright.
there's another outlet for them besides your website, it's also on our website, so that they'll know what these resources are. I think that's great. Sorry, Sanford, you had something.
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic to me of like how we can make the process easier and less capital intensive for people to get into the industry, which is, you know, in addition to having the preferences built into the system for social equity applicants, another thing that we can do to increase the diversity of owners, I imagine, is just decrease the amount of barriers to entry to the industry and make it less expensive and less capital intensive to get in. And when I talk about that, is just reducing the amount of time you have to wait before you're actually making some money from the business. But I'm curious, you talked about a couple things that all sound great, like the small business support, like with the administrative piece and the loans. And I'm curious, like, what do you think, both in terms of things that your office can do and in terms of sort of more regulatory things that would involve other agencies or legal changes that would be very powerful in reducing those barriers to entry and making it so that more people or a greater range of people, including people who don't necessarily have a lot of cash on hand, could get into the industry?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer just from like the business side and then I'll let Tosi do the policy piece, because they're very different at the core. But I think the big issue is like, nobody's done this before. It's been illegal for such a very long time that each state is rolling out very differently. And I think the things that affect businesses in Oregon don't affect businesses here and vice versa. From a program standpoint and what I've seen in my experience with small business services and how we implement programs for business support. I think, you know, working with the state more on just maybe getting, you know, groups together like landlords to kind of come to this understanding that like these business owners are going through a process where they can't necessarily tell you when they're going to be approved for something, but they're ultimately going to have an answer at some point. So working out a program or establishing a relationship to kind of say, hey, we understand that you have an empty storefront, and this was a big piece that New York City had to overcome with the Adams administration coming into office. We understand you have an empty storefront. Here are 20 or 15 or 10 potential business owners that are going to be operating at some point, but don't necessarily have a time. Now, that's a very far-fetched, perfect world idea, right? But at the basis of it, we're just trying to look to make those simple connections. And I think it's just more programs and things like that that can say, look, you don't need to spend 40,000 a month right now. Like, let's figure out a way to make this work for both of you. How do we facilitate that conversation? So I think there's more conversations and programs that need to be in existence like that. But of course, that comes with a lot of legwork and people that want to do it. So, you know, it's a two-piece thing, but I think even at a minimum, is something like that to help these business owners avoid the unnecessary costs, because as it stands right now, because they're not officially descheduled or rescheduled yet, Schedule 1, they can't write off any of their business expenses. That's right. They still get charged a federal tax, but they can't say I spent $2,000 on a printer. That's just money that's gone. And I think that's more of the policy stuff where you need to, and New York City being a big market, you need to be involved in the conversation to help change those narratives to open up those doors.
So based on that, excuse me, if I may ask, follow up on what you just said, and you can deduct your business expenses. That's based on IRS code section 280E, which will not allow what is a regulated substance to deduct any of the business expenses. That requires very careful accounting and financial management.
Right.
So what kind of support do you guys provide for that?
For financial management.
And accounting, because if you can't, the only thing that a business can deduct is the cost of inventory.
Sure.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
So very clever accountants have figured out how to try and add as much expenses onto that accounting piece of it,
Right.
so that they can bring down their increase their cost and lower the profit, so they pay less taxes. Do you guys provide support in that area?
So there's two things. One, and this is the important piece, as a city, there's just things we tend to stay away from as a whole. So SBS doesn't necessarily provide access to accountants, but DCWP runs like a tax service during the tax season for business owners.
DCW?
Yeah, DC, it used to be the Department of Consumer Affairs, now it's DCWP. There's a tax program that they run, and we help do outreach for it, and to be honest with you, that's the only reason why I know about it, because there's such a small agency that's doing it. But SBS can't touch something like that, because we run the risk of being liable for something that goes wrong with a business owner and an accountant. Like, and we, as a city, just don't involve ourselves in those things. But on the other end, these events we host at SBS, we recently did one in February for CARD.
Yeah.
We invited professionals in the space. So we brought somebody, financing, banking, insurance, we invited them all to the event and did a panel conversation. And they were asked a series of questions and spoke to the group. And we can facilitate that conversation. It's up to the individuals in the room to then take it to the next level to engage in the services. But as of right now, that is something that works successfully for us.
So you can provide exposure to opportunities for them to learn this and also provide some general skills. Skill workshop type things, but each individual business owner needs to find whoever the representative is for taxes, representative for audits.
Yes.
You can make the contact, do the networking.
Exactly, we can facilitate that entire conversation in the room. But after that, it is up to the two parties to continue.
And on the policy side, we can speak on behalf of small businesses and what they need, right? So when there is a historical decision happening at the federal level around resettling cannabis, you know, it is our hope as Cannabis NYC that we can develop a city policy position on this and escalate it to the appropriate parties so that they understand what this decision means for small business owners and constituents within New York City. I also wanted to add to your question, it's also about amplifying cannabis entrepreneurship opportunities that do not rely on licensing. There's a lot of ancillary opportunities in the space regarding education, technology, marketing, advertising, events, you know, these are all what we refer to as, you know, non-plant touching cannabis businesses. And we have a program specifically for that. It's the Fast Track for Cannabis Entrepreneurs program. The only requirements that you need to participate is to have a cannabis business related idea and the commitment to doing 10 virtual sessions. And each session we have different subject matter experts from different, you know, areas across the industry who come and give free information to the participants. And since its inception last year, we've had over 300 people go.
All
enrolled.
300 applicants.
Yeah, enrolled in the program, and it's still going on. Fast Track for Cannabis Entrepreneurs, so that is another piece of it. You know, we can't just focus solely on the licensing, because there's a lot of different layers to that, and you know, we are still a new market. You know what I mean? Cannabis legalized in 2021. The first store opened in 2022, but it was literally like December 31st, right? So it's 2023, and you know, the application window opened in November. We've had what, over 5,000 people. I think it's like up to 7,000 people apply, right? So we are still a new market, and we're working through the kinks.
So what's the business model for that? Grow like weeds? Just kidding, sorry. I'm definitely, these are like my dad type jokes. Tina, I think you were about to ask something.
I actually do.
Yeah, I thought it was,
I'm looking at, first of all, thank you for all you do, because you definitely seem like you're doing a lot. And you sort of piqued my interest when you said you do these conferences and you do these educational seminars.
Yeah.
And so I want to be able to pass that off to people, but I've gone to your website and I can't find that info.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that sounded like it sounded like you know it's a problem.
No, I think that's just how government works, more or less, like, you know, you'll never find a unified calendar of events from an agency, at least in my experience so far. One thing you can do is sign up for our newsletter that will be going out, and we will share in there a ton of different things, but we will definitely share events. I can say there has been a liftoff tour that our boss has started.
The biggest public education tour, or cannabis in
Cannabis,
New
yes.
York history.
Yes, I often forget to sprinkle in those pieces, but
The liftoff tour.
the liftoff tour is the Cannabis NYC traveling, you know, horse and pony show, where we bring all the education resources and groups to different areas of New York City to just give information. So we were just in Harlem on East 111th Street between Lexington and Park Avenue for Juneteenth block party.
We had a bunch of tables.
Right, resources, panels, all these great things. We do the cannabis parade. We've been involved. This is the second year that we've been involved.
The 51st annual NYC cannabis.
I mean, quite honestly, it
It's
sounds
touching
like,
over 10,000 New Yorkers.
but you have to sign up to get that. Is there a reason?
Well, no, and this is, I think, more of how we're designed. You know, I don't know how familiar you are with SBS in general.
I am.
You're very familiar. Okay, where did you find information about the Small Business Month Expo?
I'm sure years ago I Googled
Yeah,
small business, and frankly, they're very good.
yeah.
They're very good in providing people.
Yeah,
information.
we are. So that, like, the channels we usually work through to promote events are social media.
Okay.
You know.
Yes, we do.
On-
SBS has its own Instagram.
Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of the main social media networks. For the larger events like Small Business Month Expo, this is the first time they've done it this way. We were on bus station terminals. We were in cabs. We were pretty much anywhere you can see a visual, we had something up about the expo.
Okay.
So it's in those ways that we kind of send it, but we don't have like a calendar on the website, but this is something we can take back to our marketing team to say, hey, maybe you should build out the calendar so people can just look on the website and see events that are upcoming.
It really, it's just, people digest information so differently. Right. Some people, like, I'm reliant on a calendar and just mapping things out, and some folks, it's the pop-up of a visual
Right.
on an Instagram that's like, oh, wow, I'll just do that today, right? And, so I guess there's a balance there.
There is, and then we also have the New York City Department of Small Business Services event fund. And you'll see all the classes and workshops there too.
Maybe that's something else.
Yeah, I want to go back again and thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. And I just looked up the DOB manual that you suggested. I think it's great. I think it's a good start. And I don't know if you were, when you were saying it, I might have not heard it correctly, but do other agencies have a similar manual like DEP?
No,
Okay.
no, but they were a part of the process of creating that, so their input was put in.
Okay, so I mean, I've read through it, skimmed through it, it's predominantly DOB and land use based, and that's important.
Yeah.
But I think I would, if one thing can be taken back would be someone at DEP spends the time to do the same thing separately. Just because I think what Dolores was saying at the beginning is that we had a number of different applicants who are either they're applying to do a micro business or the cultivation, you know, and there's just so many questions about it. And from the public's perspective, we were having a hard time, you know, knowing what to ask and making sure that they were gonna be following the right rules. And sometimes they didn't even know yet, right? Because it's like you just said, it's a very new business. And the idea of doing cultivation in a 3-story, building in Hell's Kitchen is just new, very new to everybody.
Right.
But so I would just say, I think if more could be done on that, and I think this is helpful for us, I think, because this will give us at least a baseline as the task force to look at and be able to ask these applicants, or, have you done your zoning check? Have you done this? Have you done these other aspects? But I think the other component is certainly the environmental, and it deserves its own, I think, I mean, this is 9 pages, it deserves its own 9 pages of saying, someone has checked the boxes to make sure that they're gonna be doing farming, urban farming, basically, controlled substance, that they know that the agency is kind of on top of it, and I think that's what we're asking. I think we want to be able to go back to the full board when we recommend someone and we feel really good about recommending them, that the agencies out there are aware that this is something to keep an eye on, so that was my.
That guide is specifically for micro businesses, but we are working on releasing the cultivation guide soon. It's in the works, it's just that with this zoning initiative, this City of Yes, we anticipated the cultivation availability within the state to expand, and it did, which is good. And now we just have to implement that in the guide, but we'll definitely.
Yeah, I think we have two. Yeah, because they're not, technically, they don't require like our sign off because they're a separate license. They're not a dispensary license, but they came before us anyway. And so that was good. And so, I mean, we're gonna have them. They're definitely, and our zoning, the far west side of Manhattan is a lot of old manufacturing, so it's perfect for it. Yeah, but we just want to make sure that it's
perfect in one sense, the buildings itself, but the old tenement buildings, so a lot of the community comments and questions were ventilation, and how does that work, what are they responsible for? And again, not just the environmental part, but also safety concerns more on the fire type safety, et cetera. And these types of things doesn't seem to be built into the law, or at least the public isn't aware. So somehow I think those questions.
No, it's not. We question OCM, and OCM basically defers us to the city agencies.
Right.
So that's the issue too. It's OCM doesn't really have anything to say whether what's the sprinkler system supposed to be, what's the ventilation supposed to be. That, and I wouldn't expect it. But
it sounds like what you described to us is Cannabis NYC is supposed to, or is actually a hub of information for those getting into the business, those want to engage around the business, but also the information hub to those that have to create policy around it.
Exactly.
And so that would definitely be an area that I know that in our small little corner of New York City, we've heard some concerns because of the incredible amount of density that we have across Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen. What happens when this type of business goes in and it's next to a 100-year-old tenement building? What are the impacts? What protections do they have? Not just is it allowed for zoning, but how else does a whole community coexist with this new type of use? So that would be something I think that probably would help the communities at large feel comfortable rallying around this type of business application.
Oh, so I have two questions, one on policy and one on business operations. On policy, I read, maybe a week or two ago, I can't remember exactly, that the DEA has agreed to, reschedule, cannabis as not as a Schedule I, but
Schedule 3.
a Schedule 3. What is the timeline? I mean, what's the impact of them even agreeing to do that before this would mean that cannabis will be legal throughout the country and, that's my question.
Yeah, well, this is a historic, recommendation. It's not passed. There's nothing saying that it actually is going to happen, to be honest with you. What has happened is the DEA as well as HHS, Health and Human Services, have made a recommendation to move cannabis from the most restrictive area of the Controlled Substances Act, which is Schedule I, akin to crack, cocaine, heroin, and moving it to Schedule 3, which acknowledges the medicinal use, also does provide tax benefits to some businesses. We don't know which businesses will actually be able to reap that benefit. For example, there could be a situation where it's only businesses that fit within the requirements of what a Schedule 3 operation looks like that can qualify for these tax breaks, for example, right? In terms of, yes, what that means for the implications, Cannabis NYC takes a pretty strong position on this. We don't believe that rescheduling is enough. Because rescheduling does not do anything to address the criminalization of marijuana or the harms that come with it. All it really does is, acknowledges medicinal use, even though we've known that there's been reports that have come out before this. For example, there was a LaGuardia report that came out in the 40s, actually. One of the former mayors of New York had created a report stating that cannabis has medicinal use. So this is something that we've known. And on top of that, the federal government has actually even had a compassionate use drug program where they've given out cannabis in the form of joints since the early 1990s. They still have 2 patients that are in that program to this day. So, with that being said, that often is the position that Cannabis NYC takes. In addition, we don't know the impacts it's going to have on small businesses, and the fact that by opening up the industry to Schedule 3, it essentially could pave a way for certain monopolization to happen, because it basically would open the gates to big business in a way that realistically we're talking about in New York City alone, and being hard for small business owners to get access to capital and the finances to be successful in this industry. By opening up to Schedule 3, that essentially gives the green light for a lot of, big pharma, big companies to come in and, with their lobbying powers, and we don't know what's on the other side of that. So, we're just being cautious. We again recognize that, again, in some ways, this is an incremental step of the country acknowledging that cannabis does have some medicinal use, helping to legitimize the industry in some ways. But Schedule 3 is not the same thing as full decriminalization or descheduling, and it can have different impacts. So we're closely monitoring that for sure. I don't know if that answers your
Well,
question.
the timeline.
Oh, yeah, the
What do you
timeline.
think?
So right now, we're in the middle of a 60-day comment period. Comments are due to the government by July 22nd. You can actually go to regulations.gov and it's right on the homepage. Any of you can submit a comment, to be honest with you. There's over, I think the last time I checked, there's about 20,000 comments that have already been put in there. But once the comment period closes, that is when, you know, the administration, the Biden administration has the opportunity to accept the recommendation from the the DEA as well as HHS. But we don't know what that decision will actually be. That's why the public comment period is so critical.
Understood. Thank you. My second question is for you. From a business operations point of view, what do you recommend to, how to handle the cash side of the business? Because it's my understanding that no federal bank, no federally chartered bank will touch cannabis business. They won't accept deposits from it. So how are they handling not only the handling of the cash, but the paying of employees, of suppliers? How do you guys recommend that? What advice do you provide?
So I will say you definitely, so there's a few things. I think there are banks in existence, especially in 5 boroughs, that deal with it.
Yeah.
But it's a very small group of them that do so. Any of our banking solutions, quote unquote, or financial support is not open to plant touch businesses because of the federal regulations. This loan fund will be the first of its kind for those types of businesses. But when we recommend, it's going back to that networking thing where we advisory, where we provide the opportunity for them to connect to people that are doing it in the space already. Outside of that, you know, the business owners are creative enough to understand that maybe it's not 1 or 2 businesses that, you know, seize the funds, but maybe it's a third. A lot of the businesses in the cannabis space are a part of the larger entity. And sometimes that works better for certain types of businesses to operate. But there's no like right or wrong way for us to kind of help them, but as of right now, we're kind of limited in terms of financing solutions we provide.
I feel we're akin to the Cannabis NYC community boards. In Cannabis NYC, we're both advisory. We both provide information. We both want to go ahead and help people to solve problems, but we also want to go ahead and advise on policy. So we're like sister agencies.
Yeah.
I do want to flip the conversation, and I don't know if it's in the purview at all. One of the huge issues that people have with the illegal shops is that there's marketing to children, to young people. While we do know there's medicinal benefits to cannabis on its own, there's a lot that's not known. What's the impact of the combination of cannabis with other drugs like alcohol, et cetera? Does Cannabis NYC have a role to play in educating on potential dangers, concerns, protecting people that are underage? Are you involved in that at all as an agency?
Yeah, we definitely are, and we, you know, at least on the outreach side, we always have these materials that, the Department of Health has, put together in collaboration with Cannabis NYC. Just explaining those things we've talked about, you know, talking about consumption, what it means to now be in the community and things like that. So there are pieces of information and guides that we use that we help work on to educate people in that sense.
Yeah, we do have several working groups, one specifically on youth education and prevention, where we connect with different city agencies, you know, Department of Education, you know, different agencies, Department of Health is one of them, within that group, and we speak about, you know, what's happening on the ground and how we can implement solutions to that. So just recently, there's a new, DOH/MH guide, on, youth and cannabis specifically. If you go on the health web, like the DOH/MH website, they have a cannabis page. It's literally a link. It just released like within the last 2 weeks. And then in terms of, you know, everybody, including community members, has a role to play, right? So there are mechanisms in which people can file complaints, you know, you can utilize 311, that's, you know, within the city to make complaints about illicit cannabis shops or sales, you know, whether you recognize someone marketing to minors, underage sales, you know, those are things that you can actually submit through 311. And then there's also a direct link for reporting incidents to the OCM. If you go on cannabis.ny.gov, on the front page, the first thing is actually about enforcement, and you can click, there's a link to reporting an incident. Those complaints, they file into the enforcement, you know, the enforcement strategy. So it is important for when you see something, say something, you know? And I know that, you know, when it comes to the strategy on which store illegal shops are being addressed first, you know, that is definitely coming into play. Again, proximity to schools is a trigger, right? That's probably like the most highest on the list, right? Underage sales is a trigger. The length of the distance to a house of worship is another trigger. And then, you know, just again, the last would probably the proximity to other legal stores, because, you know, we want to drive business and consumers to the legal shops, because at the end of the day, you have to show ID. You know, there's security at the door. You're getting things that are products that are tested. And I'm just encouraging you all to become familiar not only with how to make complaints, but also be familiar with what legal businesses are in the neighborhood, so you can inform people the difference between a legal shop versus an illegal shop. There's a dispensary verification tool on the OCM's website. It basically just shows the decal that's required on every licensed cannabis shop. In New York City, there's about 60, close to 60 legal cannabis shops now within the city. And something that I didn't get to touch on is just another really great reason to support the legal shops is because of the Community Grants Reinvestment Fund. When the marijuana, you know, MRTA passed, that's one of the provisions to say that 40% of the retail sales tax revenue goes back into communities disproportionately impacted. It's mandated by the law. So there's a 13% sales tax, and of that, 9% goes to the state, 4% goes to local municipalities, and of that 9%, 40% is going to communities disproportionately impacted. There's a whole map on the website, cannabis.ny.gov, that shows that it's, you know, it always makes me emotional when I see it, but essentially 25% of the state in these different neighborhoods made up over 75% of the rest during that height of the war on drugs. And based off of those statistics, the state has identified these neighborhoods in which now are going to be getting funding through the Community Grants Reinvestment Fund. So this year is the first year that there's enough cannabis tax revenue to actually issue grants. There's going to be $5 million given out in the form of grants. The process application is likely going to open next month, and it's already been deemed that the awards will support youth in the form of mental health, workforce development, and housing. So I think that's incredible, and that's definitely a reason to shop legal, because your money is actually going back into the community to support your impact.
Thank you for providing that. That gives great context for why it became legal to begin with. So thank
Yes.
you. Any other questions from the task force? We don't have any attendees that have their hands raised for questions.
With your permission, I'd like to ask one more question if I may. I know I see a lot.
Oh, what do you say no?
They are the experts. So here they are.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Rob.
So, we had at least one, maybe even two applicants here, in our district who had the intention of, having a consumption lounge. We reacted very negatively to that. We asked them to please not do that. Please come back to us, talk to us. What's your view on consumption lounges being part of the retail license, and what are you recommending in that area?
So, I mean, I'll start, that license is not even available yet. Cause there's 9 that are gonna be in New York State, that they've only opened up for 5. So, right?
Yes and no.
So,
We have at least one applicant
No,
who's about to open, who has that license, right, Jerry?
there's a limited,
limited-
limited
Okay.
consumption lounge that could be attached to retail. But then, as Ward is mentioning, there's a separate on-site consumption lounge license that has yet to be issued or even available to apply for. But if you apply for retail, you could have added this limited consumption onto your retail site.
Right, but what I was going to say is. This is the conversation we have often about New York City, is we're not like other markets. So something like this is going to be very attractive and polarizing for the one aspect that this is a city that never sleeps. And that people know they can get people in that business and make a good amount of money off of it. But that's just my viewpoint and opinion on it. And Tosi has a more technical sense, but, you know, I think if you're looking at it in a certain way, you know, always remember that it's attached to a serious law that is being, you know, constantly, like there's a constant compliance check for these businesses.
And I will say, I definitely am 100% in support of allowing on-site consumption to happen within the city. I mean, of course, in order to do that, we have to make sure that we figure out, you know, just how it interacts with the smoke-free air acts and different, you know, making sure that all constituents are considered before we develop city policy for this. But I do know that I have essentially, if people have complaints about consumers smoking on the streets, then we need to have a place where they can go legally and to be able to consume. So that's my position. You know, and again, Cannabis NYC is here to work with the different agencies to develop a cohesive city policy position on this. But I do believe that people who consume should be able to have a place where they can go indoors and consume. And also, it could help to mitigate certain concerns about you know, walking down the street and seeing somebody consuming. If there was a place that people could go, adults over 21, that was not open to, you know, the naked eye, you know, that also addresses some of the concerns around this topic generally.
It's legalized, the chances people are gonna smoke it on the street is very high. This takes that piece of it.
It provides another option, it provides another option, yes, and you know, New York City, has the, I'm making a little bit of a joke, maybe I shouldn't, but New York City has the, nickname of, New Amsterdam, right? Or Amsterdam, right? We all know about Amsterdam and Europe, right? So, I think that a lot of, tourists and consumers have definitely thought about that for quite some time. Right?
I would just say this from a community standpoint and the boards that have to review those, right? I would, again, and I'm sure you guys are already thinking about it, but taking the example of what we just seen happen and the struggles with that rollout and the public understanding what's allowed and what's not allowed, and people be completely convinced that they've set and legalized cannabis dispensaries on their block. And how did that happen? Why did that happen? And they're dumbfounded to find out that we've only, up until now, literally have had one legal dispensary in our entire district. That's been since last year.
And there's
And so, like,
60 trucks that are visible
Right.
that say something cannabis, weed.
I would just say, taking the lessons learned from that and doing something like, like how consumer friendly, I think about DOH's letter grades for restaurants, how easily understandable that is. And someone taking a look at something like that for the consumptions, because I think the public is going to have, like you said, there will be a lot of people that like it, and then there'll be a lot of people that are like instantly like, I don't, is this right? Is this wrong? Is it legal? Are they doing everything right? How do I know they're doing everything right? Is this building gonna go up in flames tomorrow? All these things. And so giving them, the public, something easily to understand that, like you said, make sure, right, there is all this. There is always someone's behind the scenes making sure that they're following all the rules, but giving that in a digestible way to the public, so they know that when you're getting these consumption lounges, there is someone really, on top of this and paying attention. And I have to say that, I think that's huge.
You only need to walk one block from here, 9th Avenue on the corner of 34th Street,
Yeah.
where the smell of marijuana is billowing out of the windows, and these places have been closed down.
Yeah, they basically turned into late night consumption.
The stickers are there, people are consuming it, it's all glass, so you can just
You
see,
see right
the smoke is literally filling the whole queue of their store. But the tragedy of that is not that they're the folks that are selling illegal, the tragedy of that is this 2-year period between getting legal ones open, your regular consumer no longer cares whether they're legal or illegal. They've got their place to go. They like the guy they're dealing with, they like the price, they got their guy. And so there's a lot of work to be done to get any of those folks. Now you get the new consumers, people are a little bit more conscious of the law, people who maybe the reason why that they're shopping there is because they're throwing a party and think it might be fun to have edibles, but they're not usual users. But your folks that are entrenched and also frequenting these places, you're not gonna suddenly go to the place that has the sticker that says they're legal, show 2 forms of ID, pay the higher price, know that they're being videoed, etc. We're not gonna change their habits. So the quicker we can get the illegal ones completely just out of the picture, so that they're not in the game, is the better off we're gonna be in supporting those that are gonna get their licenses. But that, like you said already, it takes everybody to get engaged and involved, see something, say something. You talked about maps, knowing what's legal. We just had presented to us, there's a group of block associations, et cetera, that have created an interactive map that shows where all the illegal ones are, the legal and the ones that are under review for license. And it's something that we're gonna start posting on our own community board website so that folks can start to educate themselves.
I would love if you guys could send that to us.
Sure.
Please, yeah, that'd be great to see.
That's not good.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, with Operation Palettes Protected, we already been 400 stores padlocked, closed, so.
Come,
So
a
only
little
2,000
Midtown,
Yeah,
Midtown.
yeah, and it's only been about a month, so.
Well, we've got plenty of rooms,
Yes.
so,
Maybe air conditioning cut off.
okay, all right, air conditioning's cut off, so we.
Thank you all so much.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the trip. This has been very helpful, and we hope that there's much success in what you're doing on the policy and on the delivery of services side. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Saying your business card?
Yeah, for the group.
You can get some questions.
Well, I was gonna.
I have one
So folks, we don't have any attendees, so I'm gonna assume that there's no one from the public that is looking, to ask any questions, so we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
A second? Okay, thank you, everyone. Meeting is now closed. May I close this meeting?